Hey, what's up? Give me more, Jimmy Moore here with your countdown to college success tip number 3. Y'all, this is a big time of year for you, and it's just around the corner if it already hasn't started. I just got done speaking to 3,500 students at the University of Toledo in Ohio. What's up, Rockets? Listen, it was a great experience, and I gave them some really great success tips on college, and now I want to give you one that you can get ready for moving in. Let me tell you this. Moving in is a big deal because you're going to be living probably with a roommate. Living with roommates is not always the easiest thing to do because maybe you had your own room at home. Most students who come to college had their own room. And unless you had brothers or sisters or tons of people around, you're going to have to adjust. Living with a roommate is a big deal, especially if you're going to be living with a friend. A lot of you will come to college and say, man, I already got my friend lined up. We're going to live together. It's going to be great. Let me tell you this, living with a friend is a lot different than just being friends. Once you get into each other's space, it can break loose, okay? So I got some tips for you to succeed on how to live with a roommate. Now, your RA, if you live on campus, is going to come around with something probably called a roommate agreement or roommate contract. And if you don't live on campus, I suggest you make one of these for yourself because this is going to be the key to being happy all year while you live with this other human being in a space about that big, all right? So you're going to do this roommate agreement. And basically, this is laying down the rules, laying down the expectations you have of each other ahead of time. And you really want to do that. I know we all don't like talking about the rules, and we don't like talking about the stuff up front, and sometimes it's not comfortable. But I promise you, it's a lot more comfortable than living in tension for 8 months. So many people live in tension for the entirety of their first or second year that it's terrible. They never want to spend time in their room. And this is the way to avoid that. The guaranteed way to avoid that, do a roommate agreement. What you want to lay out in your roommate agreement are several things. First thing, temperature. All right. Maybe you like it cold, your roommate likes it hot. That's going to be a big deal. So you got to figure out what temperature do we want to agree to keep the room at. Because the worst thing is when you do a temperature war and you walk in and make it colder and they walk in and make it hotter. And that's just the beginning of the tension. Next thing you want to lay down is cleaning. Are you super clean? Are you kind of messy? Are you a total slob? I'm kind of messy. I'm not dirty, but I'm kind of messy. So I have to do an agreement, make sure my roommate knows or what their expectations are. Usually the person who's more clean kind of wins out here. If they have expectations about how they want certain things, fantastic. But just lay those out. Maybe their stuff stays clean. If your part is messy, that's not a big deal. Or keep your mess in your room. You know what? Lay it out the expectations. Who does the dishes? Do you want to leave a dish in the sink overnight? Do you want to leave a pot on the stove during the day? You know what? That's up to you. And if you both agree that's not a big deal, fine. But listen, nobody likes a dirty house, and nobody likes bugs. So if it's getting there, that's too deep. So set an agreement about the cleaning schedule, common spaces, who's going to vacuum, who's going to mop the floor. That is so important. Next one, food. Once you get involved with people's food, this can get pretty deep. Gentlemen, hear me talk here. A lot of guys, we just kind of see some food and we are hungry. So we're just going to go grab this piece of food real quick. You know what? If that's not your food, don't take it. Unless you've set up an agreement with your roommate. For me in my house, I tell my roommate, what's mine is yours. The only rules I have about that are if it's unopened or I haven't used it, or if it's the last one, please don't take it. Because I don't want to be surprised when I come to find my piece of food and it's gone. So set up some rules with your roommate. What do we expect about food? Guests, especially overnight guests. If you live in a small space like a residence hall, y'all can't go to your own room. But if you live in an apartment still and you have guests all the time, that could be distracting. So maybe you set up some time or approval. Maybe say for guests, we have to get each other's approval if they're going to stay overnight. Because you know what? This is someone's house, and if they're not comfortable with a guest, that's not a slam on you or your friends. That's just their personal comfort level. So set up an agreement. What do you want to do with guests? Next one, money. You got to pay the bills together sometimes, especially if you live out in an apartment. So set up who pays what, who's responsible for what, and take your own responsibility for that. Talk about lending money. Sometimes, a roommate might ask you for some money, and you can say up front, look, if you need to borrow a few dollars, that's not a big deal. You can ask me. Or, I don't really feel comfortable sharing money. Either one of those is okay as long as you lay that out up front. If you talk about the temperature, cleaning, food, guests, and money, you'll set some clear expectations so when you do have real problems, you can address them. And that's the final piece. Talk about how do we want to settle disagreements. Sometimes things are not going to be easy to agree on. So say, I really prefer to give myself a day to think about something and then we'll talk about it, or I need to talk about it right away if there's a problem. Set up those expectations ahead of time and you will be good to go. This is your college success tip number 3, countdown to college. You're moving in, having a good time. Have a blast.